This morning, we are not in a series, as you know. We're just kind of doing, I'm taking an opportunity to just talk about some things that are kind of on my heart, and kind of a little bit today is kind of going back to basics. And I thought about this message a while ago and kind of just put it on the shelf. So the title of it is Debating Jesus, with a question mark, right? If you're going to debate somebody, that might not be the person you want to debate, right? But the reason why I'm thinking about this is my friends and I, a lot of friends are here today, that's been a kind of a way in which we've interacted with each other through the years, is good, healthy. PC Pete left, didn't he? He walked out. Because he's the biggest one. But just kind of like, good, healthy discussion, debate, and so forth, And so I got thinking about that, and I remembered some passages in the Bible where people tried to debate Jesus. Now, I don't know where you stand with who Jesus is, and so I'm not going to get into the theology of that and everything, but here's the thing that I know. This book, everybody know what this book is? It's actually not one book, it's multiple books. It's the Bible, and in the Bible, it says a lot of stuff. Don't you agree? Do you read it? I hope you do. I hope you read it. It says a lot of stuff. And what I've found through the years in my life is that depending on your own bent, your own narrative, you can piecemeal things together to support your point of view. Isn't that true? Have you found that? I mean, even within sects of divisions of Christianity, you find people taking things and putting them together. And then what you find is this. I try to be as honest as I can with the Bible, and I see that there are things in the Bible, and this doesn't bother me. I hope it doesn't bother you. Things that are, I know some of you aren't going to like this word, but are contradictory, right? So there's a story of Jesus being buried at the tomb, and the women go to the tomb. And in Luke, it says, I think it's Luke, it says that the women went and told the 11 and everybody else about Jesus being gone, right? And in Mark, it says the women went to the tomb, and they left, and they told no one. Okay, I mean, you could do some gymnastics if you want and try to reconcile that somehow, It's just authors, saying what they thought was the truth. But the trouble is that when you say that the Bible is God's word, which I believe it is, it comes down to this idea that, it has to be perfect because God is perfect. Are you with me? Okay. My point is this. My point is that it says a lot of stuff. And as a matter of fact, in the Old Testament, you all know the Ten Commandments, right? Well, there weren't just 10 commandments, right? There weren't just 10 laws. There were 613 laws in the Old Testament, all different sort of things, ranging from, Sabbath rules and dietary, and it's amazing. Just read Leviticus and all the washing rules, right? All the washing stuff in there. It's just crazy, and what you can eat and what you can't eat. So there's a lot of stuff in there. And so as you can imagine, there were religious leaders who would try to make sense of all that, right? And so in the Jewish faith, there's something called the Midrash, right? There are these commentaries on the Old Testament, and what rabbis would do is they would begin to try to explain what these things meant. Do you remember a couple weeks ago in here, I was talking about this, and I was saying that the Bible needs to be understood with wisdom, right? Everything. Like there's very little that I believe that you can just read and take 100% literal. You have to apply wisdom to it. And I gave the example of keep the Sabbath holy. And a lot of people would say that, keep the Sabbath holy. Well, what does that even mean? And so rabbis would argue and debate that and would say, well, to keep it holy, you can't work. Okay, but what constitutes work, right? And so you might have been raised in a family or whatever that kind of held to that. And so Sundays was a wasn't even a Sabbath in the Old Testament, right? It was Saturday. But you couldn't do things. Oh, no, we're not allowed to go to do that or whatever. Well, you have to apply wisdom, right? What if mowing the grass? How many like to mow the grass? Anybody like to mow the grass? Yes, a lot of people like to mow the grass. Good. Is Tony here? Tony, I want you to see all those hands because, the church needs mowed in the summertime. Who likes to shovel snow? See? No hands, Tony. None whatsoever. The point is that sometimes, depending on your job, mowing the grass on Sunday may be relaxing, right? And so the point is you have to apply wisdom. Now here's the thing. In our life, we make tons of choices all the time. There's actually studies done on the art of choosing. And there's this Shanna Yeager, and she from Stanford, she did this study. And they were studying choices. Do you know that we make on an average of 70 decisions a day? 70 decisions a day. That's about 25,000 a year. That's 2 million over your lifetime. Now, some of those, granted, aren't that big a decision, right? But some are. I mean, marriage. Am I going to get married? When will I get married? What home to buy? Big decisions, right? What school should I go to? What should my major be? Of course, I'm saying a lot of these things because I have kids at that age trying to make these major decisions. And it's hard. I mean, think about how hard it is for, you've lived enough life. Decisions are still hard. And for an 18, 19, 21, 24-year-old to be making these major decisions, it's difficult. And so she did this study, and here's the study. Listen to this. So what they did is they ran this study, and they went to like a grocery store, and they put out on a display items to buy, right? Let's say it was just peanut butter. And they would put 24 different choices of peanut butter out there. And they'd do a study on the people that would purchase those things. And then they lowered the number from 24 to 6. And what they found, now this isn't just a one-time thing, it's over and over and over again. The data shows it, just over and over again, that more people purchased when there are less options. Kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? We think that with more options, there'll be more people buying. What they found is it's actually the opposite. So when we lived in Africa, we had very little options, right? You'd go to the market, and there was one kind of meat there. There was one kind of meat there. That was it. If you'd go to, we actually had even a grocery store, but you'd walk in that grocery store, and even though the things were super expensive, right, there'd just be one or two things on the shelf, and we'll go in and buy the things we need. And then we after a couple years living there in Congo, we went to Kenya. Isn't that right, Michelle? We went to Kenya. And in Kenya, has anybody ever been to Kenya? Anybody been there? Kenya's not like at Congo where we were. Congo would be third world. Kenya's more second world, even pushing first world, right? And some amazing things. We went into a mall. There was actually a mall there. And we got on an escalator, and Brent and Brock were like, they thought it was a ride, like riding this escalator. They wanted to keep riding the escalator, And we walked up, and they actually had a bowling alley up there. And I'm standing there watching these people bowl. And Brent and Brock said, what is that? I go, of course, it's very familiar to me. I go, that's bowling. And they go, what's bowling? And I explained it to them. They go, well, who does that? I go, anybody. They said, we could do that? I go, yeah, and I didn't realize, like they had no frame of reference, nothing to even understand what this was. And then we went to a grocery store. I should let Michelle tell this story. Went to the grocery store, walked in there. What was it, Michelle? What was it where we were standing in front of? Do you remember? We're standing in front of something, and Michelle was standing there just looking at all these choices. Now, this is Kenya. It wasn't Giant Eagle. And she's standing there, and she I think you did start tearing up, crying, because she was overwhelmed with the options, with the choices, and she couldn't make a choice. She couldn't decide, what we wanted to get. And so we're faced with this so much. And so here we go. So this is what happened. So first century, very different than our culture today, right? Very different. But the problems and issues, they never change. They're always the same. And so here we have, first century, one of the teachers of the law, sort of a professional Bible person, you think of it that way, was thinking about all the different laws in the Old Testament, all the different things to do, and we all kind of want things simplified, don't we? Just kind of break it down for me and make it simple to me. And so here it says this in Mark. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. They were debating, right? And Jesus was there. It said, noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked Jesus this question. Of all the commandments, of all the things in the Old Testament, all the things that it says, everything that you're supposed to obey and do and follow and how you act and everything, right? He said, out of all the commandments, which one's the most important? Which one? And so we get overwhelmed with many options, and so they were overwhelmed as well. But don't you agree that making decisions is important? It's something that you can't avoid. But sometimes when there's too many options, right? Too many options in front of you, that's what ends up happening. So can you relate to this? Michelle and I are sitting in our living room, and we get the remote, and we put Netflix on, and we start going through the movies. Okay, going through it. And we're there for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes looking at movies. Are you sure about this one? You saw that? You're not in the mood? I'm not in the mood for that either. 40 minutes. Finally, we turn the TV off and we go to bed. Right? There's so many choices. Anybody else do that? Are we the only ones? You all do that, okay? Yeah. You get so overwhelmed with all these choices that you just give up. And so we just want to kind of, narrow it down, I know, couples, you have the same experience, I asked my wife, where do you want to go to dinner? Oh, I don't care. Now, it's our job to figure out what that means, right? Well, let's do Chinese. I had Chinese yesterday. How about pizza? I'm not in the mood for pizza. You want to go to, Olive? It's too far. I don't go there. Okay, why don't you decide then? I really don't care. Guys, when you say you don't care, what do you mean? You don't care. You know what I mean? Let's go to Get-Go and get a hot dog. Yeah, I'm in. Whatever you want to do, I'm in. That's what you want to do. We'll go eat hot dogs at Get-Go. That's the way it is. And so, here's the thing. What we want to know is really what's the most important thing. So this question is posed to Jesus. And of all the things that are in the Bible, all the things the Bible says some amazing stuff. Just go read the last 3 chapters of the book of Judges. No, maybe don't do that, because you're going to come to me with like 10,000 questions, and I'm not going to be able to answer any of them, right? But here's what we want to know. What's the most important thing to God? Right? What's the most important thing to God? How many of you would just like to ask, you get in a situation and you go, I wish God would just tell me. Just tell me. I just want to know. Because if there is a God, and I believe there is a God, right? And he's made everything, and he somehow knows everything, and even the future somehow, which is a hard concept to understand, being outside of time and seeing, it's just mind-boggling, right? But we have this view of this mysterious being that creates everything, and he knows. Just tell me. I'll do it. Well, maybe, but just tell me, right? I want to know what's the most important thing to God. And so this guy asked this question. He's sort of a professor in the law, right? And they were obsessed with the law. They were obsessed with all these things. So much so that you might say that the Pharisees were, this is in your notes, the Pharisees were really focused on boundaries. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying boundaries are bad per se, okay? They were focused on boundaries. Have you ever been part of boundary religion? I have. Boundary religion, where you were always told what the boundaries were. You couldn't go outside of those parameters, right? Now, I'm not saying boundaries are bad, but here's the problem. The problem with boundaries are you end up having to guard them and enforce them, right? Remember last week we talked about the problem in our society today is boiling down to tribalism, right? Boundaries have a lot to do with that problem in our culture of tribalism, right? So, and that's what defines our tribe, doesn't it? Now I say tribe, I'm using that in terms of like either our political affiliation, our religious affiliation, our socioeconomic affiliation, whatever it is. What defines those things are our particular boundaries. And what that tells us is who's part of our tribe, and who's not, right? And who's not. And that's a major problem in our society today. So and that gets entrenched more and more and more. Now, of course, I'm talking about it in terms of religion, right? Well, just drive down the road and you see all the different divisions. And if you go and you ask them why, like people ask me, what kind of church do you pastor? Like last night, they would ask me at the reunion, what kind of church do you pastor? I go, well, it's, and I know what they mean, denominationally. And I go, well, it's actually an interdenominational church. And they go, what do you mean by that? I go, well, like everybody here's from a different background, aren't you? Right? We're all from a different place. But what's wrong with that? Why can't we be all from a different place and come together and be open and listen and hear people say, well, I think this. Oh yeah, really, that's interesting. I was taught this. And basically it's always that, isn't it? It's what we were taught. Not many of us, and I don't mean to be, coming down on anybody, but not many of us have spent time researching for yourself when it comes to religion of, is this thing I believe really what I believe? Or I just believe it because, well, my parents told me that and their parents told them and so on, right? And so I believe that and because that's the way I was raised. And that's okay. And so we have these boundaries. And what happens is this. We end up having to protect and reinforce the boundaries, right? And that's what the Pharisees did. The Pharisees want to say to be a Jew, you have to do these things. And if you don't do these things, then you're not a Jew. And the goal is to try to get everybody to be a Jew, right? And to follow these things. And that's what with that's their boundaries, right? There was this guy who I was reading, his name's James Dunn. He was focusing on all kind of rabbinical writing from the early years, like the first century. And he found this, that the early rabbinical writing was focused on three things: circumcision, Sabbath keeping, and dietary rules. 90% of the writings that they found from first century, right? Not biblical text, extra biblical text from the rabbinical writers. 90% of it was focused on these things. Now, is it that they didn't believe that God was a God of love? No, it wasn't that, but they had to protect their boundaries. Sociologists have a name for this. It's called culture boundary makers. And that's what distinguishes one people group from another. And it happens in all people groups, right? You drive down the road and you see a 1960s Volkswagen bus, with hearts all over it and 60s writing and stuff like that. And you look and you know that person, if you went up there and you started talking and you said, hey, are you a Deadhead? Yeah, I love the Grateful Dead, right? Yeah. Anybody? No one? Come on, you guys are looking like blank stares. You know what I'm talking about. Who remembers the 60s? Well, if you lived through the 60s, no one remembers the 60s, right? But they live in that. That's their boundaries, right? Or you go down the road and you see a car with all these bumper stickers of, save the trees and all. You know where their boundaries are, right? You know what kind of group that they're a part of, and so it happens all the time. There was a story that I was reading. This guy was at a stoplight, or he's come up to a stoplight, and the light was turning yellow. And the car in front of him was getting up there. And so all of a sudden the car stopped. He slammed on his brakes. He was so mad. None of you can relate to this, I know. I can, because I want to go. I go through it when it's yellow and pink. I'm still going through it to get, And so, and he's laying on his horn, he's blowing, he's mad, he's yelling and screaming in his car, and all of a sudden there's a knock on the window, and he looks up, and it's a police officer. And he looks up, and, oh man, and so he says, "Sir, get out of the car," and he gets out of the car, and he takes him, and he handcuffs him, and he takes him to the police station, puts him in a cell, right? He's in there, and then a little while later, he takes him out to the booking station. And he said, I'm so sorry, sir. He said, there's been some, confusion a little bit. When I saw you there blowing your horn, flipping the guy off and cursing, then I looked down, I saw on your bumper, what would Jesus do? WWJD, you know what I mean? And then around the license plate was choose life, On the bumper was the fish. He said, when I saw that, he said, I thought, this guy had to have stolen this car. Right? So takes him in and he books him, right? So boundaries are not wrong, but they can be a problem. And here's what happens. This is what happens in our world. When boundaries, your particular boundaries come under attack. You know what I mean? We all have different boundaries, don't we? When your particular boundaries come under attack, what do? Well, you have to start defending, don't you? You have to start defending those boundaries. Okay, so this guy comes up, he says, Jesus, what? Listen, I think he's maybe trying to trick him a little bit too, but he saw this debate and he saw Jesus give this great answer. He thought, wow, I've made my life about laws and rules and boundaries, and this guy seems pretty wise. And so he asked him, he said, out of everything there is, out of everything, what is the most important? And it's the answer that we all kind of want, don't we? What is the most important thing? What is the thing that everything else should be filtered through? Here's what he said. He said, the most important one is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. The second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. You know what Jesus was doing there? Jesus was a couple things. One, he was upsetting the boundary makers. Those who were so entrenched in making and defending these boundaries. In a world of choices, what Jesus was getting at was this. If you come to the center of everything, and that's what Jesus was doing. And what I want to propose to us today is this, is that this whole book, all these books in here, written by all kinds of different authors, they all have a center. And that's what Jesus was getting at. Jesus was saying, listen, you need to go back to, it's like this. It's like when Michelle and I were with Wycliffe, we had a guy that came in and talked to us in Wycliffe, and he made $10,000 a day going to talk to companies, big companies that were kind of going astray. And what he would say is this. He would draw all these concentric circles. He would say, back when you started here. And what happens is as you start to grow, this center begins to kind of move, right? Like why you exist, and it starts to change. It happens to churches. Churches start with a goal, with a vision for helping people, and then it starts to grow because why? Because people want to be involved in that, right? And you grow in numbers, then you grow in what? Facilities and buildings, and then all of a sudden this circle, this center begins to kind of float and move and kind of get to the outer parts to where you exist mainly for the buildings, right? To take care of the buildings, to mow the grass. Not Tony. Tony knows, right? And to do, and then you forget, and then you start to get into different debates in church about color of carpeting and all this kind of stuff. Because why? Because that seems to be the center. And it happens all the time. It happens in families and everything. So to get back, Jesus brought them back to the center of what's the most, what it's like the hub of a wheel, right? And all the spokes going out. Without the hub, all the spokes are just going to, right? They're going to be meaningless. And so Jesus kind of gets right down to it. The most important thing to God is love. To love God. You have to start there. I love that he starts there, right? Here's why. To effectively love others, you first have to love God. Now, even something precedes that. And here's what you need to know. The Bible says this. The Bible says, we only love, or are capable of love, because God first loved us. It doesn't even start with us. The Bible doesn't even start with us. The Bible always, all the way through it, right? It starts with God. It starts with God approaching man. So a narrative that you may have grown up with, like I grew up with, was Adam and Eve in the garden, and God loved them, and then they disobeyed God, and God got mad, turned his back, kicked them out of the garden, and that was it, right? That's kind of what I was taught. That's the simple narrative, right? But if you read this story, this narrative, it's God said, listen, you can do it. Everything's permissible. There's one thing here I want you to do. Because why? Well, it's not beneficial for you. It's going to hurt you. And they do it, and God comes looking for them. Hey, where are you guys at? What happened? Why are you hiding? You don't have to hide from me, right? And he pursues them. You remember the gospel in chairs, right? God is constantly pursuing us. Even when we're running away, God comes there right in front. Where are you going? Why are you running? That's what he's saying in that story with Adam and Eve. Why are you running? You don't need to run from me. No matter what you think you've done, isn't it the truth that people do something, they're in church, and they do something wrong? What's the first thing they do? They forsake the church people that love them, and they leave. And I go, it just doesn't even compute to me. The place where you should come when you mess up is here. You're out there and you're saying, I don't need the church. Then you mess up. Come in here. You're going to find love and compassion and forgiveness if the church is healthy. Church is healthy. The trouble is we've had so many experiences where we mess up and we get condemned. Why is it that in churches we have a tendency to shoot our own? I don't quite understand that. That doesn't mean that everything's permissible. That's not what I'm trying to say, right? Because the Bible is clear on things. It says, listen, speak the truth in love, right? Sometimes people we talked about that last week. Sometimes I need people to judge me, but I want them to judge me how? What did I say last week? Honestly, truthfully, completely. Understand everything about me. And then come to me. And come to me with love. And so he says, love God. Love God. And then when you understand God's love for you, and you return that love, and you love God, then and only then are you going to be able to love others. We start with him. Now, I sometimes have a tendency not to start with loving God. Oftentimes I start, maybe like you, I start with my problems, right? My worries and my concerns. I start there. And when I start there, it's hard to make that better, isn't it? At least it is for me. I need to, and sometimes I do, and I need to get more consistent with starting with loving God. Now, I'm not going to try to define that to you because that's personal to you. I don't know how you do that. Some of you like to go out in nature, don't you? You go out in nature and walk, even in the Bible says that. The truth of God can be seen just looking around in all of nature. Some of you get close to God when you do that. Some of you want a solitary, quiet place, right? Just get with yourself and God and in your own thoughts. Some of you like that. And so I can't tell you how to do that, but you start there. You start there. Because remember, the Bible says we love because he first loved us. And then you'll be ready to love others because you yourself feel loved. Isn't it true? People that feel unloved, generally speaking, aren't loving people. You generally aren't. If they feel they're not loved, if they feel they've been rejected, well, then they go out in the world. That's what creates, young kids, makes them bullies, right? They're unloved. They're dominated. So what do they need to do? They need to go and dominate. But a person who feels loved, right? And ultimately feels loved from God, feels that love from God, understands God's love. I'll be honest with you. That's why in church in here, I spend so much time talking about God's love, because you can't hear it enough. Because there's enough voices from the outside and within our own head that tell us God couldn't possibly love me because of whatever, you fill in the blank. Oh, if you only knew what I did. If you ever knew the thoughts that I have, right? I couldn't possibly be loved. You wouldn't love me if you knew I fill in the blank, right? So we start with, God says, listen, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I love you because you're mine, period. I love you because you're mine. And when you start to live in that love, it's easier to go out and love others. And so, listen to this. This is an amazing passage of Scripture. It says this: let no debt remain outstanding except the continual debt to love one another. Okay, now listen. For whoever, you want to take something literal? Take this literal. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. Isn't that what Jesus is saying? Jesus getting to the center. He's saying, listen, all the rules, stuff like that, if you live in love, you don't have to worry about the periphery, right? You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about committing adultery. You don't have to worry about stealing and lying, right? If you start in the center, you start at the core, you start at love. He said, for whoever loves others has fulfilled the law, the commandments. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. You shall not covet. And whatever other command there may be are summed up in this one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm, physical, emotional, spiritual, doesn't matter, does no harm to a neighbor. You won't cheat your neighbor. You won't lie to your neighbor. You won't steal from your neighbor. If you start with love. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. Fulfillment of the law. And this is a choice that we all have to make. We all have to choose this. So real quick, I have a couple minutes left. Mark 12. Well said, teacher. I love those three words, right? Saying to Jesus, way to attaboy. Jesus gets an attaboy. Attaboy, Jesus. Man, that was so good, right? As if, well, anyways. The man replied, said, you are right in saying that God is one and there is no other but him. But to love him with all your heart, with all your understanding, with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is more. And listen to what he says. So he gets this. This guy gets this. Because he says this. It's more important than burnt offerings, which we don't do, right? And sacrifices, which we don't kind of think that way. We think sacrifice is the most important thing, right? He said, this is more important than any offerings, than anything that you can do for God. Anything that you sacrifice for God. That was back in the day when missionaries would send their kids off thousands of miles away to go to boarding school, and they would literally, now not death-wise, but literally sacrifice their family and their children for God. And he said, God doesn't want that. Doesn't want that. It's love. 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 And so he says this. When Jesus saw that he had answered wisely, he said to him, I love this, he said, you are not far from the kingdom. Not far from the kingdom. The kingdoms, he didn't mean, man, you're getting, it's over there and you're getting close to it, you know what I mean? Like you're warmer. Keep on, colder. No. What he was talking about, so the kingdom, this is another way to understand, or supports my view of what kingdom is, right? Kingdom is a way to live. The kingdom of God is a way in which we live. And he says this to him, Ah, man, you're not far from it. What do you think he meant? You're getting it here. How many get stuff here sometimes? And then you live your life and you go, got it. I knew better. So he says, you're not far from the kingdom. You're not far from the kingdom. Now what you need to do is, now you're getting it, now you need to start living that life. Living that life. And the same for us. Knowing the right thing is awesome. But knowing the right thing and not doing the right thing is meaningless. Knowing the right thing and doing the right thing. Okay. These are my thoughts, the last three things. I want you to write these down. Listen, you fill in the blank. You take this message and you think of it on your own, okay? And you think, what are the things that drain my love for God in my life, that drain it? First one for me, you write it down. Unbalanced schedule. My unbalanced schedule drains my love. What I mean by drains it, I don't even have time to even think about it. How many of you go through a whole day and never really contemplate, that you're part of something way bigger than you? And I don't even mean just our culture, society, or even the earth, but I mean something much bigger, cosmic. And that there's a being who creates everything, right? And we get so busy in our schedule that we don't have time to nourish our spirits. Take time to nourish your spirit. One way to do that is this. I've talked about it many times, and many of you have told me that you've done this, is to learn to be grateful. Learn to be grateful, no matter where you're at in life. Learn to be grateful. Stop complaining about the things in your life that aren't so good and start looking around and go, I have a lot to be thankful for. I have a lot to be grateful for. Try living a life of gratitude. Try this one time. Try the first two words of any prayer that you ever, breathed to God. It started with thank you. I thank God yesterday I prayed on the golf course and Jeff missed a putt and I won the hole and I was, thank you God, he was so good to me. I think I prayed that day. Pete tried, it didn't work. I tried that, yeah. And Joe said he was going to try, and I said, he doesn't know who you are, Joe. I'm just kidding. I was just kidding. That was bad, but he's my good friend. So, unbalanced schedule. The next one, listen, this is a tough one, but it's uncontrolled media, right? Some of us consume far too much media, right? When I was reading about this, there's something that's called, listen to this, believe it or not. It's called vicarious. You know what vicarious means? Like a father can live vicariously through his son, get his son to do all the things he wanted to do and kind of live out through him. Well, there's something called vicarious PTSD, PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, where you consume so much media. And listen, this is fact. Like all the major networks tell mainly their editors, the ones that edit all the video, they warn them about this, vicarious PTSD, that you have post-traumatic stress syndrome just from watching it over and over and over again. They warn their editors, but who don't they warn? Us. And we consume that. Listen, I see it all the time. Consume so much media. People get caught up in it and experience all the same things as someone with PTSD, right? And it makes sense. You know why? The brain doesn't know the difference, between you doing it yourself and experiencing it and you watching it. Yeah? Yeah? You believe it? You see commercials, right? And all of a sudden you don't even know it. You're up in the kitchen, you're looking for a bag of Doritos, right? Because you watch the commercial, right? You watch somebody eating something like that and you want to do it. And so uncontrolled media keeps us from living a life and caring for our spirit and living in a life of love. The last thing is this, is unexamined grace. Unexamined grace. And that all I mean simply by that is we just don't spend the time understanding and thinking about the Creator's love. I always tell people this: take a healthy parent, and think of the amount of love and what they would do for their children, and compound that exponentially, and that's God's love for us. And so it's unexamined grace, not realizing that in our life. And so we need to go and love others. And you'll do well. You'll do well in your life. If we come back to the center, and that's what Jesus wanted to do, let's center our life again. There's something called centering prayer, right? Where you come back to that core. Listen, because the minute you leave love, it starts to get, I'm just telling you, and you might say, oh no, I'm sure. The minute you leave love, it starts to get gray. Almost immediately. Like almost immediately. Even within Christianity. Like basic, something you think is a basic tenet, you'll find another church and goes, not so much. Right? Because the minute you leave love, right? There's a scripture that this church takes as more normative than this church over here. The minute you leave. Come back to the center, and you'll be okay with some of that, with the gray as outside. Are you with me? Good. Let's stand. Let me pray for us all. Lord, thank you for thank you that you love us. The way we understand you may vary so much of what you are, or your qualities and your characteristics, all this kind of stuff, but we know one thing. It says that you are love. It's not that you have capabilities of love. You are love. And so I like to think of it, God, when I see love, I see you, because you are love. And you want us to center there, to acknowledge and understand and receive and live in your love, and then reflect that to you, and then reflect it to others. And God, all the other things, they'll come together, or we won't worry, we won't fret over them when we start, and we keep the center. So we thank you for it. In your name, amen. Amen. Thanks, friends. Have a great day.